I'd like to thank our sponsor for this video, which is TrueFire. Hey everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day today. If you're new here, hi, my name is Katie. I'm a music teacher, I'm an Enya endorsed artist, and I love helping my students utilize their gifts and talents to be able to serve others. This video is all about how to produce a clear sound, so some tips and some tricks, some things to consider as you're learning your chords. Even though I'm demonstrating these exercises or these concepts on the guitar, these concepts could be easily transferred over to the ukulele or any other fretted instrument. Tip number 1, use the tips of your fingers. So usually when people first start, they end up using the flat of their fingers or the pads of their fingers. Their fingers lie flat like this versus using the tips of your fingers. So think of this portion of your finger curved like this in order to form your chords. It doesn't have to be a complete curve here. The curve right here of the first knuckle is going to be the most important curve because then it gets the other fingers out of the way or the other part of your finger out of the way so it doesn't touch another string and it doesn't mute it or muffle it. So tip number 1, use the tips of your fingers. Tip number 2 is actually something that I mentioned in the previous video on chord diagrams, and that is move your fingers closer to the metal fret. So instead of here, even though the chord diagram indicates that everything is right in the center, you can actually scooch it up a little closer to the fret. It doesn't have to look exactly like the chord diagram. It's just telling you where to place your fingers. You may have to experiment a little bit of maybe scooching your fingers up a little bit or maybe kicking the ring finger out just a little bit if you're playing the D chord. And then you'll notice that the closer you are to the metal fret, the easier it's going to be able to produce a clear sound, and you don't have to push down as hard. Tip number 3, you're probably squeezing too hard. So make sure that you're only applying the correct amount of pressure to form your chord. And most of the time, people are actually pushing too hard. They really are. And so how do you know that you're actually pushing too hard down on your strings? Well, you can build your chord one finger at a time and then note how much pressure it actually takes to produce a clear sound, and it's usually not that much. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to play a D chord, but I'm going to build it one finger at a time. So first, let's just start with finger number 3 here on the 2nd fret of the E string, and I'm going to lightly touch the string, and I'm going to pluck it. It's going to be muted. Then I'm going to gently apply pressure to the string, and once I hear a clear sound, I'm going to stop applying pressure. Okay, that's the amount of pressure that is going to be needed to produce a clear sound. You don't need any more. I feel like I'm barely touching the string. And then you do that as you build your chord. And then note how much pressure you actually need to be able to produce a clear sound. Usually, it's not that much. Before we get into the rest of the tips, I'd like to thank our sponsor for this video, which is TrueFire. TrueFire uses world-class teachers to create online lessons. I've tried them for the past few months, and my playing always improves. I'm using Joe Robinson's course, 10 Scales and Modes You Must Know. And not only does he tell you how to play these modes, but he demonstrates why they work over certain chord progressions. It's complete with tabs, multi-angle camera shots, and you have the ability to slow down the video to meet your speed. It's brilliant. Get 35% off TrueFire courses using the promo code OneMusic35, which is linked in the description box below and a pinned comment. Or sign up for the All Access Pass to have access to the entire TrueFire catalog. You can sample anything in the catalog with the All Access Pass and see what you want to learn next. I love their tagline, learn, practice, and play with TrueFire. Thanks again for TrueFire for sponsoring this video. So somebody that I sat in on a clinic with when I was teaching at a ukulele camp, as Craig Chi, he referred to this as piano fingers versus violin fingers. And I love that because piano fingers are straight up and down. Violin fingers are more so at an angle. So if you can think about building your chords not straight up and down this way, like this, it's not only going to produce a clear sound, you're going to be able to push down on the strings more easily with this part of your wrist. I feel like for me, it actually straightens out my wrist and I'm able to just create a nice clamp with my fingers and my thumb on top like this, than if I were having my fingers straight up and down. So instead of straight up and down, think about curving your hand this way. I always keep this portion of my finger, this portion right here, in contact with the neck. I always have, and I always feel like I have so much more control over the instrument when I do. And because I'm curving my fingers this way, violin fingers versus piano fingers, I'm able to do so. This next tip is basically troubleshooting through your chords, just trying to figure out, okay, why does this chord sound so muffled? It's usually the culprit of maybe 1 or 2 strings. So let's say if I'm playing a bar chord here, and I find myself just, this one string just keeps, what is that? And then I find myself thinking, okay, well, there's something that just doesn't sound quite right. Play each string individually, and then you'll usually find 1 or 2 culprits. Or maybe you'll just have to apply a little bit more pressure, just depending upon the situation, but you're troubleshooting and making a mental note of what is actually going on, and then you can adjust as you're strumming. Now the last tip may be something logical, but I just thought I'd mention it, is that cut your nails. Sometimes just a little bit of a nail can just get in the way of a clear sounding chord. So if you cut that nail, get rid of that space, it may help. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you want more, I'm going to put more in the cards all around me, some strumming techniques and as well as some tutorials. So I hope to see you there, and have a great day. Bye.